My name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Jessie G. We're at the Nicholson Library at Linfield University. It's October 25th, 2023. Jessie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And welcome back to campus.
Yeah.
First question, tell us a little bit about sort of your life before Linfield. Where were you born and raised?
Yeah, I'm actually from Brookings, Oregon, so down the road. And I'm from a small little fishing town, a little coastal town. And we're 4 generations of commercial fishermen. So I grew up, on the boat my whole life, on the docks, just seeing that lifestyle of the feast and famine. My family went through a lot of ups and downs growing up, but I think it taught me a lot of hard work. I sang my whole life. So, ever since I was in diapers, I was hosting talent shows in the living room, and my parents, they would be like, oh, here, Jessie, with her little notes delivered to all the family, I'm hosting another talent show again. So it kind of just naturally came that I would eventually be a performer. When I went to high school, I started getting way more serious into music, and law was always very intriguing to me too, which, fast forward, we'll get to it later, but I was a political science and music double major here at Linfield College. But back then it was just, more of my interests, and then things kind of got serious for me with music, with talent shows and state fairs. I started winning a lot, and so it was like first place here and there, and I started getting money, and I'm like, whoa, this is actually kind of cool, And so it kind of encouraged me to take that next step further and consider what it would be like to make it a career and pursue it further than, just talent shows and that sort of thing. So I tried out for Linfield University's music scholarship. I sent in a video of me singing a Tower of Power song, and Mick Gillette from Tower of Power was actually visiting when we took the video. I don't know how our band teacher got that hookup, but he did. And so it was just a really cool video of me with this amazing, renowned Grammy award-winning artist, and it was just a really cool. And then I also sang Aretha Franklin, Respect. I sent that video in. I didn't really think anything would come of it because I didn't really do a whole lot more than just send the video in and fill out the application. But I got an email back, or a letter back, excuse me. Back then it was letters. Now it's probably emails, saying, we've accepted you into Linfield College. We want to offer you a scholarship. At that point in my life, I was like, whoa, scholarship. That had been the biggest thing that had ever happened to me. My parents didn't go to college. My grandma had just finished later in her life, so college was a very new thing for me. I didn't really have anybody to ask, what it was about or what to expect or anything like that. So, I just kind of was like, wow, it seems like I'm meant to go here. So I decided, all right, I'm going to Linfield College. I'm going to major in music. But I thought to myself, I don't want to just major in music. And if you know me well, you know that I like to cram as much as I can into one little amount of time. And so that's what I did here at Linfield when I got here. I decided to double major. I double majored in political science and music, and I took so many credits. I started classes at 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. every day and ended at night, like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. They had some night classes, I think. And so, it was such a great journey, going from high school to Linfield. I didn't feel like I was very prepared for college when I got here. My school, was a great public school for some subjects, like math was great, but there were other subjects I felt like I really needed a lot more preparation before I came here. So having the ability to have office hours, tutors, all those, really that one-on-one help that Linfield College offers was huge for someone like me. One thing I will say about myself is I have work ethic. I work hard, I show up, but when it came to being prepared and knowing things that would have helped me, get an A in the class right away, I lacked in that. So Linfield College really helped me out in that way. While I was here, I played a couple sports. I played softball and soccer, and that was fun. It didn't last very long for me because I soon realized that music was so demanding, especially I was on a scholarship. So, there was choir tour that interfered with softball tournaments. And So I had to eventually pick and decide between, but the fact that I got to come here and experience all that was pretty amazing, and I don't think many colleges would have offered me that. So I got here and I started singing at the music department and realized I don't sing any classical music. I was definitely into rock and pop and jazz. I grew up on jazz most of my life. So that to me was another challenge I had to figure out how to overcome. And that challenge was good for me. It developed me into a vocalist that sang in a more healthy way. Learned how to protect my voice. I learned how to warm up. I learned how to access different parts of my range and develop my mixed voice and all these things that I probably wouldn't have learned if I had just stayed, in that lane of just pop music, country music. But there did get to a point where I was like, all right, I love that I've gotten this base and this knowledge of classical, but I'm not going to be in opera. I'm not going to go to New York and sing on Broadway. I'm probably going to be a country music artist. So we had conversations my junior year, and they were serious conversations. And at the time it was with Fontige, and she was so gracious, and we talked with Anna Song, my choir teacher, and then eventually Dana Libinati, who is my jazz choir teacher. And we decided to create a specific major for me, which is amazing that this college would do that for me. I was able to study things that I had not really, that I hadn't known before. Like, I'd never sang an opera song in different languages and all that, but having the ability to focus on what I was going to do with the rest of my life was really important. So they made a class for me, and it was vocal performance major, but it focused on more of a vocal jazz and contemporary music. That to me was the icing on the cake that made me just know that I made the right decision to come here. And my senior recital was full of songs. I sang Adele songs, I sang country songs, then I also sang like Carmen and opera songs and songs of Schumann and Schubert and like all these German songs, which was great. Apparently it just rolls off the tongue for me a little bit better. So my time here was amazing. There's nothing, man, I'm trying to like kind of put into words everything I've experienced here, but there's not, there's no way for me to get it all during the interview. But yeah, I think I tapped in on my Linfield experience, and after that, I was a political science major too. So I was like, okay, well, I can do like entertainment law or something of that nature. That, you can provide for a family, you can make a good living, and being a musician is a little harder. So I started working for as a paralegal for some lawyers. I worked for 2 different lawyers, amazing men. They were huge fans of my music. So at work, they'd always be like, hey, when are you singing again? Can we come to your shows? And it's kind of funny because they almost like kind of pushed me into that direction too. I loved doing the paralegal stuff, but it wasn't my first passion. When I'm on stage, there's no concept of time, and it's what I love more than anything, I mean, when I'm singing, sometimes I'll just like black out and just be like, come back in there and be like, wow, it just takes me over, So I was working as a paralegal in Portland, Oregon. After I'd graduated, I moved up there, and there was a Battle of the Bands competition in town, and the local radio station, 98.7 The Bull, they reached out and they were like, hey, Jessie, we know you've been playing in bars around town and doing the country music thing, and Gretchen Wilson's coming to town. She is a Grammy award-winning artist that sings Redneck Woman, Here for the Party, Homewrecker. Her hits go on and on. And they were like, you and her seem like very similar. You should probably do this competition to open up for her. And I had just graduated. I was freshly out for I think it was like a year of being out of college. And I thought I had already bought all my books to take the LSAT. I was gonna try to go to law school, do all this stuff. And that opportunity came and just kind of popped on my lap. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll enter the competition. We'll see what happens. Won the competition. Fast forward, I get to open for her. And after the show, I got to go back and meet her. So we played the show. It was a great show, sold out venue, packed house, and we got to meet her after, and she was just sitting on the picnic tables out back by her bus. And I was like, hey, can I come say hi, and hang out? And she was so friendly. She's like, sure, come on over. Her security let us through. She let my whole family come over. So we're just sitting on picnic tables right by the dumpsters, like not very glorious as you would think. But we were just talking, and we ended up staying up and talking, singing, talking, laughing, telling jokes till like 4 a.m. She was supposed to leave at midnight. She kept pushing her bus call later and later and later. And it was so fun, and it was one of those times I just felt like I'd met somebody I'd known my whole life. And I was like, how do I get to this point where you're at and, do this for a living, provide for a family, like have a number one, like, and she was like, you kind of have to move to Nashville. That's where the industry is, you can do it here, but there's a ceiling here, you can't really get to the CMAs in Portland, Oregon. You can't really get an ACM award. I mean, maybe you could, but it's a lot harder. If you move to Nashville, you're in the thick of it. You're around all the hit songwriters. You're around all the artists. You're around all the best studios, everything. So I took that comment super seriously, and she gave me her phone number and her email, and I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I have to at least go see Nashville, see what it's about. So I took a bunch of money that I'd made selling fish at farmers markets, because I was doing that also on the side. And I went, it's crazy, I know, it's weird. I'm a very strange, eclectic, And and then I took all that money, I recorded a full little album of any song I'd ever written. They weren't very good at all, but I wrote them, and some of them had potential. And I planned a trip out to Nashville a month later, and I emailed her. I was like, hey, I'm gonna come visit. And I emailed her a few times. I was persistent because she didn't respond right away. She's kind of a celebrity superstar, so she was very busy. Finally, she emails me back. She's like, oh great, here's my home address. Meet me at 2 p.m. or something on a Sunday. I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening. So go to Nashville, and we land, and already I'm in love, because you walk through the airport, there's a Tootsie's restaurant with live bands playing, everything is just right in. As soon as you get to the airport, you see what Nashville's about. Then we go downtown and we see Broadway, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know this was real. I didn't know that this was a thing. There's 3 to 5 bands in every single bar, venue, down the whole line, music everywhere. You walk outside, it's just a wall of sound. So cool. So I was already I want to live here. Portland doesn't have something like this for someone like me. They have, other spots that are awesome, but for me, it was a dream. So we went to the meeting with her, with Gretchen, sat down, I showed her all my songs, and she was just listening, and yeah, it's got potential, it's good, yeah. And she was like, okay, well, are you gonna move here? And I'm like, yeah, maybe, I want to. And she's like, okay, well, let me know when you move here. She wasn't really giving me much to work with, but it was that feeling I had that I was like, she's giving me an opportunity without saying it. And I have, I'm 24 years old. I haven't gone to law school yet. I haven't signed up for anything yet. I mean, I did spend a couple $1,000s on an LSAT, books and all that stuff. But, it was one of those situations where I'm like, I'm not tied down yet. And I could pursue something that I would probably regret it if I didn't just jump at it and do it. So packed up my car, saved up money, selling more fish at more farmers markets, and my paralegal job and all the hodgepodge of things I had going on. And packed up my car, drove, I think it's over 2,000 miles. It's 43 hours, I think, out to Nashville. Drove all the way out there, didn't know anybody but her. Rented this small little studio apartment, go out every night, because she was still kind of hard to get a hold of. We'd go out every night, meet people, buy them a drink or buy them lunch, or just pick people's brains. Ended up right away getting some awesome songwriting sessions. First, it started out with just people like me who just moved there. They were new, wanted to meet people. Then it turned into at a label with a bigger songwriter or something of that sort. And then things kind of gotten better. And all along the way, I would send Gretchen my stuff, and she would occasionally reply. Then a tornado came through town. I'd never ever experienced a tornado in my life. When you're from Oregon, you're just like, what is this? And it's so terrifying at first. Now I don't care. I hear the tornado sounds, sirens, and I don't care. But at that point I was like, oh my gosh, like what do I do? So I'm texting her and I'm like, hey, not to bug you or anything, but there's a tornado. I'm just wondering, like, what do I do? And she calls me and she's like, okay, are you on the first floor or second floor? Like, second floor. She's like, is there a first floor shelter or anything? And I was like, no. Okay, get in your bathtub, put a mattress over you, like just wait it out. So after that, we almost like, I don't know if that sparked something more, but like then we started like writing after that a bunch, and all this stuff happened. She ended up canceling a bunch of her shows that year, so she had all this free time, and I was able to like really get to be a good friend with her. And then I eventually wrote this song with some of my buddies called Army Ranger. I just started dating a man in the military, and he was leaving for a while, and I didn't get to talk to him for months, and it was like just a really hard time for me. And I wrote this song called Army Ranger, kind of about the situation. And I brought it to her, and she was like, let's sign you to a record deal, you know? And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I guess my writing had gotten better, you know, I'd gotten to that point. So went on tour with her, and it was a cool situation because first I just was selling her merch, and then I'd get up and sing my single. And then I get back down and I'd sell merch again, and she'd let me sell my merch along with her merch. But I only sang one song, but I would sell like lots of stuff. So I'd make some money doing that. Then she was like, all right, you're past the point of selling my merch, and you also know what it takes. So when you employ somebody, you'll know what goes into it. Now, let's get your band on the road with me. You can fully open for me, but they'll be my crew. So I don't need to pay crew and your band, but I can pay your band to be crew, so you don't feel like you have to pay them every show, all this stuff. So then we're on this bus together, and my guys got to ride on a bus with her, which was for them crazy because they grew up always like listening to her and loving her music. And so they would crew for her, and then they'd be all sweaty from, you know, doing all the crew stuff and setting things up. And then they run back and shower, and then we jump back on stage for our 20-minute opening set. So we did that for a little bit. And then I started expanding, opening up for other artists. I got to tour with Leonard Skinner. I got to tour with Bad Company. I got to tour with Sarah Evans, if you love country music. I got to tour with Jared Neiman and some other big artists. I've gotten to play on the biggest festivals. So I've gotten to hang out with people like Brothers Osborne, Ashton McBride, like all, you know, and when I see them, they know who I am now, which is really cool. Yeah, and honestly, the rest has been kind of a whirlwind. Those are the staple, like, pinnacle things that kind of, you know, those milestone things for me. Right now, you know, things are going really well for me. I travel the world now with my music. It's crazy. Travel the world, and I see people singing my songs back to me. I had a song chart in the top 20s on the Music Row charts, which is huge for me. Yeah, I've just been really blessed. I'm married and have a kid now, and they travel with me, and they go on the road with me. So we have a tour bus, we have a little Sprinter van, and we just fly all over, and it's a dream come true. And yeah, I get to do what I love. So, and a lot of, you know, just being here at Linfield and developing who I was as a person had a lot to do with that. So.
That's a wonderful story. Thank you for that. I'm going to back up and fill in a few pieces for myself. So you mentioned growing up around music. Did you have musical influences close to home? Did you have other people in your life who were musical?
Yeah, my dad was in rock bands. So when I was a little girl, he would like take me to his practices, and they were just in like basements. It was very like grunge, you know. But you know, I'd sit there with headphones on, and I'd watch him and his buddies like learn songs, Metallica songs, like a lot of heavy metal. It was a heavy metal rock band. So I got to like see that, but then he would also take me to like karaoke nights when I was little, so I could perform in front of people, and you got to really gauge like what worked and what didn't for you, you know. So that was my biggest musical influence when I was little. And then when I got to middle school, I had a great jazz choir teacher. He was amazing. And he would enter me in the competitions that I ended up winning and winning. And yeah, he still plays for me occasionally to this day. And then Dana Libinati here at Linfield, huge influence, taught me so much about theory and just stylistic things with jazz that I now incorporate in my music today. And he played with me on this last tour that I just had here in Oregon, so that was really special.
So tell me about the music that inspired you growing up. You've gotten to country now, but you mentioned kind of rock, pop, jazz as the things earlier in your life. So what were the kind of influential songs, artists that really kind of got you hooked?
Yeah, I like to call my music rock country, because when you think country rock, you think like Charlie Daniels and all that. My music's way more like rock country, because I'm definitely both. A lot of people now are going like emo country, and they're like, yeah, they're trying to be that fusion. I grew up on Dixie Chicks, Reba, but then also Metallica, Aerosmith, The Refreshments, like cool rock bands that had that deeper, edgier, darker sound. So that really does shine through in my music. But I'm also a huge lover of jazz and blues. So, man, it is crazy, because like sometimes I think about that and I will listen, and you can hear the elements of it, you know? And it's fun when you hear other artists and you get to guess. You're like, I bet they grew up listening to, you know, so-and-so. But yeah, just everything.
So why, you mentioned applying for music scholarship at Linfield. Why Linfield specifically? What made you even aware of the school to apply for it in the first place?
Actually, my cousin went here, so I knew of the school, and he loved it. He played baseball here. So I never had been here before I applied for that scholarship, but I knew about it. And then when the scholarship, I think my aunt was the one who was like, hey, you know, they have a music scholarship if you want to apply. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just try it out. And, you know, to my surprise, they liked me.
So you talked a little bit about, you obviously double majoring, taking a lot of courses. Outside of the music, what were there other sort of standout courses or faculty that you remember, or moments from kind of the curricular side of life here?
Yeah, faculty for sure. Man, the political science department, I had so many fun teachers like Pat and Nick. It's so cool because we're such a small school that I feel like you get to make really good friends with also your professors. Anna Song, obviously, with the music department, her and I got close through choir. Dana Libinati, obviously, you know, he was a huge mentor for me, and we still are close to this day and talk to this day. Joan, I still talk to her a lot. Honestly, I talked to a lot of my professors from here, and everybody was always so supportive, you know. Even like political science stuff, they loved the music. I took this one class that was like political science and I think the arts. I think that was, I don't know if you guys still have it here. That was such a cool class because I was able to incorporate my music and stuff, but spin that into some sort of like political, whatever we were talking about at the time in class. So yeah, it was really cool. I think that class was my favorite that stands out. Besides, you know, music stuff.
What about the other parts of sort of campus life? What were some of the activities, events that stand out to you? Are there moments from just hanging out on campus that stand out in your memory?
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed. I had great roommates. I lived in the coolest places here. I lived in Memorial my first year, which was so fun because you could hear the football games and, you know, you could literally just walk out and watch and then go back to your room. So cool. And then I lived in Pioneer, so that was awesome. I mean, the bell was, you know, allowed, but it was, yeah, it was really cool. It was like kind of haunting. And then the HPs were awesome because I was able to, my favorite roommates that I had lived with at the other places, we were able to all live together. So that was really cool how, you know, you could live with more than just one person. But activities, you know, playing softball freshman year for a little bit was awesome. The team works so hard. They're champs for a reason. They're so good. Soccer was amazing. And I was at that point too where, you know, I was like, oh, the softball team's just, they need too much of my time. I don't have enough of it with double majoring and doing music and having the scholarship. But the soccer, I was like, maybe I can juggle soccer because it's a different season. No, they work just as hard. So it was really fun. I played water polo for the first time ever here. That was cool. I'm a horrible swimmer, but I got better. Almost drowned a couple times. Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, there were so many things that really stood out and, you know, really taught me new things for this small town girl coming from the middle of nowhere.
You talked about performing musically here for the choir and things like that. Tell me about that type of situation and traveling around doing music for Linfield. What were the parts of that you enjoyed, and what have you sort of taken from those kind of performances?
Yeah, I mean, on the choir front, it was awesome to go on choir tours because they would plan these extravagant tours. They go everywhere. It was really great, and our choir was so good. So we would go travel to California, Arizona. We'd sing in these beautiful chapels, and having that experience doing the choir tour was really great. It also helped me for later when I had to plan my own tours and with my own band and all that. I had the knowledge of just logistically how things work when you're traveling around with a bunch of people and equipment and gear, and you gotta make the most of sound check, and there's so many things that you can say to that. And then, having the ability to do the talent shows that they host here. We did that every year. And then the cat cabs were really cool because I got to play my own music, and really start developing what later would become, my artistry and having my own songs.
You talked about the conversations you had that led to creating the major that you at that point you mentioned that sort of country music was the path you thought you were on. What sort of caused it to be the country? What made you think at that point in your life that's where you were headed?
Yeah, I feel like it chooses you as much as you choose it. Songwriting wise, I am very country, because I really like that elements of real life. The listener can connect to the story. That's a very country music thing. My sound was always a little more edgy, so I did feel like although country music chose me with the path in life, with the people it put in front of me moving to Nashville, all that stuff, it's a very country music path. But with everything else, I felt like it was very rock and roll. But I soon realized there is, everybody at a country music concert, 90% of them are also rock and roll fans. So you're able to do both, as opposed to, if you're playing a rap show, it's kind of a toss-up what you're gonna get with, what everybody likes other than that. So, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like country music, yes, that's organically who I am, and it just comes out that way as my muse. I sit down when I'm writing, and it does come out very country, but it chose me as much as I chose it. I really feel like that.
So let's talk about the artistic process a little bit. You mentioned obviously you were writing songs early on, and you'd recorded a demo before you even went to Nashville. Tell me about how the process has evolved for you and how you go about creating your art.
It's all different. It's so different. Sometimes an entire song will come to you at 2 a.m. and you'll get out of bed and you'll be like, oh, I got to go write that down or record it on my iPhone, or because you can't, if you don't do it, you will lose it 100%. So you got to take advantage and seize the moment when the muse, or whatever you like to call that moment, comes to you. I do think that, the process, which a lot of what I'm going to speak to today is going to be the process of when that song starts as the idea, and then it blossoms and it blooms into what it becomes later after you record it, is one of my favorite processes ever, because you get to see that song in infancy. It's your little baby, and you're have all these ideas about what production will be, and then if you decide to bring a producer in, or you hire A-list artists who end up obviously playing their own take and spin and sounds on your music, it becomes more things than you ever even imagined, But then sometimes you get stuck in this, they call it demo envy in Nashville, where you miss your demo, where you're oh, well, my demo was better. And usually that's not true, but you're so married to that first idea that you just can't let go. And then that beautiful thing it became with other people's influence, sometimes you're it's hard to accept that. But it comes in so many different forms. Most of the time I write with other people, because you can get a song, a really well-crafted song done that's been through rough draft, re-edit, final thing in one day. As opposed to when you write alone, I feel like you got to take it out, you got to sing it in front of people, then you see their engagement with it, then sometimes you manipulate it and you change it. It can sometimes take months, So that's the beautiful thing about Nashville is you can sit in a room and crank something out in an hour. Most of my best songs were written in under an hour, which is crazy. Like Nickelback says they wrote their biggest song on a pizza box. Like that really is like true. It's crazy, which is cool to say about like how it all works and comes to you just in that moment. But yeah, it's always different making the music.
Tell me about finding a band and finding people to surround yourself in this as you're kind of growing musically.
Oh, finding a band. That's a hard one. It's great because I live in the hub of just music city. So if I need players that say, okay, so I have my set guys that I love to use, but a lot of times I'm at that stage of my career where my shows, I don't book out a year in advance, I book out 3 to 6 months in advance. That's the level that I'm at. So my guys, sometimes they'll be like, oh shoot, I booked a show 6 months ago with this other artist, I can't make it. Cool thing is I have 5 other guys I can call that probably know my music because they played for me a time or two before. So, I have this set Dropbox where I put my charts and my set lists and my tracks. We play with tracks and in-ears. So, my band leader, who is also a Linfield College alumni, he'll be here today. He is like bulletproof. The tracks are like chorus, 1, 2, 3, bridge, 3, 4. Like he's like literally got everything so you can't mess it up. And we also have in the tracks like organ and other stuff to where if I don't get paid as well for that date, I'm able to still have the instruments that are on the record there with me. Obviously the end game is for me to always have like the full band playing the real instruments for sure. But, can't have 6 background singers sometimes, so it's not realistic. But yeah, the process of getting in a band is always different. I have a lot of people I play with here in Oregon for that run. I was able to play with my old jazz choir teacher Dana Limonati here at Linfield, and his son played drums for me, which was great. And then I flew my band leader out, so he's mostly at all the shows. But yeah.
So I'm curious about what you expected going into a career in the music industry and how it's played out. Has it played out about how you expected, or what have been the big surprises along the way?
Oh man, I have the kind of personality where nothing's ever good enough. So like, even if I had like a hit song and I made like millions off of it, I would still be like, what's next, So that's a hard one for me to answer. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would look at where I'm at now and be really happy and proud of that, yeah, totally. Like, I get to do what I love. I get to schedule what I want, when I want, like provide for my family, tour anywhere I want to go. Obviously, it takes work. You gotta put in that grind for booking the shows and all that stuff because I'm an independent artist. So it does take, it takes a team for sure. But I'm super proud of where I'm at. I think in a lot of ways I've surpassed where I thought I'd be, and then other ways I thought it would look different. But I'm happy with it. I'm happy where I'm at.
Has the process of signing a record deal and getting into that stage been what you thought it would be?
Yeah, so I'm actually independent right now. I signed a record deal with Gretchen, and then 2020 happened. 2020 was a really rough year for me in many ways, personal and career-wise. Our label went under, I guess you'd say, kinda. She just couldn't be able to have me on as an artist anymore. She couldn't, it takes a lot of funding, a lot of work, a lot of management. And at that point, she's like, you'd be shelved if we kept doing this. So I was like, it's totally fine because in a weird way, being independent and having ownership out of all your stuff, but still having the relationships that you have can be a better option if you let it be. So for example, I own 100% of my music now. So she's one of my best friends, Gretchen Wilson is, that's the label I was signed with. Redneck Records is what the label is called. And she had, I think, 12 songs, and she just gave the masters to me. That never happens. Usually, you lose the masters, you don't get any of that back, and you unfortunately lose all that work, that you put into it. But she gave me everything, and she's like, I want your dreams to come true. I want you to be successful, and I'm here for you when you need it. And I'm like, okay, well, let's release a duet or something. That to me is just as big of a deal as me being signed to your record label. She's like, okay, let's do it. So the next song I have coming out in January is a duet with her, and I fully own it 100%. So if it becomes a hit, that's amazing for me and the future of that. And I guess to put that in perspective, when Gretchen released Redneck Woman, she was signed to Sony Music. Her deal was, they had a lot of ownership. She's still recouping on Redneck Woman, and that's one of the biggest hits a female's ever had. So if you think about that, it's pretty crazy. So for me, I'm like, if I can release something that I think is going to be a hit and own it fully, as a businesswoman, I'm like, I'm cool with that. As an artist, I'm like, well, yeah, a label is great for having the money. They can put $1 million behind you. They can get you on Today Show. They can get you, into that CMA voting pool. Yeah, that's great. But you can do it. You can do it independently. It's just harder, and you got to make those relationships. So, I'm in a position where I still have all this great music to help fuel my career, but also I could sign a good record deal if it came my way. So, yeah.
I'm curious about creating music in the current day, in 2023. Obviously, we grew up, there were still like CDs and tapes and maybe 8 tracks, maybe I'm a little older than you are, but there was still music in a physical form, and music was released in an album way. How has it changed, and how do you find is the most successful way to get your music to the people?
Oh, I gotta take a drink of water for this one. Yeah, man. If I was an artist back in the days when the Discman first came out and I'd released a CD, oh, that would be nice. Yeah, actually, at my presentation I'll be giving, both of them today, I have this chart that shows you how many streams it takes for me to make $1. It's sad. It's changed a lot. So back in the record days, cassette days, all that, you would make a percentage of that sale, and it would usually be pretty good. When I had first released music way back when, I was making, I think, 80 cents on the dollar, which is amazing. Now you don't have that because, unfortunately, fortunately, anybody can put stuff out, right? You can go to TuneCore or DistroKid or whatever distribution. If you have all your assets together, you can put out a song and, it could go viral, blah, blah, blah. How much money will you make on that song? Not very much. You hear hit songwriters that had a hit and they made a couple $1,000s, and you're like, back then that would buy people their homes, and it is really hard. I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the future with all that. I know that there are platforms that are pushing to pay artists more. So there's, obviously you got Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, YouTube. There's a couple artists, there's so many different platforms, but there's people that push their music on. There's one platform that pays really well. I can't seem to think of it. It'll come back to me. But they try to push the music on those because, or you could be Garth Brooks and you could be like, I'm not gonna release my music on any of those platforms. If you wanna buy it, you gotta go to my website and you gotta buy it off my website. He's smart, but he's losing out on listenership, I think. Maybe he's not, I don't know, I don't see his numbers. But then again, it is the age where if, my song gets on the right playlist, I could get millions of fans like that overnight. So, it just depends on what you're going for, but you have to tour now, in my opinion. Obviously, everything I'm saying is just my experience, my opinion, so take it for what it's worth. But I feel like you have to tour now, or you have to find a way to make money off that content. Some people are influencers on TikTok, Instagram. Some people, they monetize well and they have their videos up on YouTube and they do well. You can make money that way, you can. But I would rather tour than do that. But yeah, it's changed, man, it's crazy.
Does that change how you approach creating music or how you approach distributing music?
Yeah, unfortunately. And I don't think it's for the better, if I'm being honest. They have all these things that they're like, hey, the algorithms are you have to hit from 6 to 8 weeks, release a new song, 6 to 8 weeks, the day of like the album. I feel like people are trying to make the albums come back. For a minute there, it was like no one was releasing albums, and it was really scary because I was like, albums are so cool. You can literally let it play and then hear the like interludes and like all the track to track, like the cool little hidden nuggets in there, and you know, hidden tracks, all that stuff. That is such a cool thing. And it scares me that the way it is right now is so like single heavy. You gotta release, pump it out, because it makes the art decline, in my opinion. But I think there's a push back from it. I really do, because I see a lot of artists being like, you know, no, I'm not gonna be that, and just, what's the right way to say this? Like, you're just a workhorse for social media, you know, and it's like for clicks, for likes. So hopefully things kind of level out, you know. But I think people are appreciating the raw, the organic, the not so ad heavy in your face. You know, people don't want to see that anymore, I think, hopefully. But yeah, that's my opinion.
So you mentioned that you're at a place where you're pretty happy career-wise. What is left for you to accomplish? What are you looking to do in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I still need a number one, because if you get that number one, you're good for life. You know, you can tour on it for the rest of your life. Like, I've seen that firsthand. I'm friends with like Tanya Tucker, Gretchen, Kid Rock, Big and Rich, John Rich, and Big Kenny, and I've like tons of artists like that, and they're good forever. Like, save a horse, ride a cowboy, like that's not gonna go away. So it's really cool to see what that can do for you. So in the end, like when all of it comes down to the one thing, it's about the song, you know, and I love that about Nashville, because Nashville is all about the song, and just making the music really good. So yeah, that's, you know, the only thing that I really want to happen. And I want to tour some more cool places. But
we talked about before the camera rolled about being back at Linfield. So tell me about being back on campus. You mentioned not your first time back, but what's it like being back here, and what do you find you've missed?
It's so cool coming back here. Even the first turn off the highway where you see like Linfield College, it's just such a beautiful entrance. You know, it's just, the nostalgia is like crazy for me. So many memories here. You know, the struggle to become an adult was here for me. So I love that. You know, I came here as like really a kid, and I came out as a very confident, well-shaped, I hope, adult. So I'm very, very happy just about, you know, the experiences I had, the people that were in my lives then are still now in my life. So that's just pretty cool for me to be able to say, yeah, I hope I come back more. I need to come back more. I need to make some homecoming games.
Definitely. What's changed on campus? How is it differ from what you remember?
I mean, you have a Starbucks now. We didn't have a Starbucks. I forgot what it was called, but I went there every morning. I love coffee. I actually didn't drink coffee till college, and then I had to because, yeah, pretty much political science is why I had to. But yeah, what else has changed? Honestly, I gotta look around. So you guys are kind of my next stop. I went and got coffee and then came here. The library's pretty similar. It's kind of stayed true to it. Music department, I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Do you have any advice for students who were where you were 11 years ago or 12 years ago when you were in school?
Yeah, I was trying to think about how to like say advice without being like super corny, because I'm a corny person. Like, I'm always like, follow your dreams. But it's true, you know, and life is so short, like, or life's too long, and then you should do what you like, whatever way you want to look at that. But I do think that sometimes people get very caught up in asking other people for the answers. And if there's advice that I would want to give people, it's that no matter what, no matter who, you're never going to find all the answers from somebody else. You got to pave your own path. And once you figure that out, that you can pave your own path, there's no one right way, there's a million right ways. Like, once you figure that out, you can start taking people's answers and taking the little bits that will benefit you out of those, and not necessarily put your head down and try to do exactly what they do or follow whatever. And then also form like who you authentically are, so that you're gonna be happy with that, you know, at the end of the day, whether that's you're making dog food or you're singing or you're an actor or whatever it is, just making sure that that path that you choose is you, because at the end of the day, all that hard work you put into it, you got to live with that. You got to deal with it. So yeah, I guess that would be my advice, is pursue your passion and make your own path.
It's not too corny. That's all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have, or anything we didn't cover today that you'd like to cover?
No, I'm just very honored to be here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and let you off the hook.